Welcome everyone to Solomon's Crown. So in today's talk, we're gonna talk about this whole Jada and Will thing and what it means for modern relationships and modern marriages. So for months now, it seems like every other day there's something going on with Jada and Will. You know, we all know the famous or the infamous rather August Alsina incident and entanglements. You've heard rumors of open relationships. We've heard of, Will's, adventures and all sorts of stuff. But this is basically not about them. But this is kind of like a reflection, of what this could mean for modern marriages. So we've seen now that divorces are super high up. I think, what is it, 80% of marriages end up in divorce, and most of them, I think 70% of them, are initiated by women. We see men now at an all-time high are single. People in general are single, doing their own thing. A lot of people think that marriage is dead. So, given the fact that you have Will, who has been an icon for years, Fresh Prince, all these things, he's wholesome, or he has the image of being wholesome, but he's also very wealthy. And Jada, his actress slash trophy wife, the image that they sold off, you can kind of see how on the surface they were one way, but in the backdrop they had all these issues. What do you think incidents like that, and for normal people like us, what do you think this could mean for modern marriage in the West and specifically in America?
So, truthfully, like I was just talking about this the other day, where it's like they're at a point right now where their kids are not like have to be the like, oh, we're together because of the kids and this and that. And truthfully, I think that Will loves her more than she knows. Essentially, like, granted, he did a lot of things that I watched some of the interviews where
Hmm.
he exhibited narcissistic behavior, and he did a lot of things in the past that like kind of were like overstepping even in a marriage. But we'll link some articles about that and everybody can read up
Yeah.
on it. But I just, it's kind of an awkward situation because like we're going back and forth, going back and forth, going back and forth, where at one point it was like, oh, she's in the wrong, and then it was like he's in the wrong, and then it's just like, okay, we're at a middle ground where we can just kind of be like good, and then she's back again with this. So as far as it relates to like modern relationships, I think a lot of people, generally not a lot of people, but like people do, when children are involved, try to work things out and try to make things work for the children. And it's not necessarily the best thing for the children. Like, yeah, granted, they have two parents in the house, in a household, but what does that mean? Like, their definition of like love and how they see how a family is supposed to be is going to be heavily misconstrued, and it will have long-term effects on them. So at this point, I mean, their kids turned out pretty well. Uh, they're living their lives, doing their own things, but they're still successful. And I just don't see why, truthfully, Will would still be putting up with it. Maybe it's just that she has something on him that he's
Yeah.
just like. So there's one or two things. She has something on him, and he's just like, okay, like we're kind of stuck in this. Two, like if he divorces her, like she's gonna come out on top, and Will literally has to work for the rest of his life if he's gonna be paying alimony and all these, like all this stuff towards her. Um, so that's the biggest thing. I mean, a lot of people have been like, "Yo, Jada Pinkett Smith is like a B-list celebrity at best," and like,
Hmm.
granted, she has her own projects and everything that she's working on, but like comparing it to Will Smith, like it's minuscule. She's a amazing mother, from what he said. Like, she took care of home life and everything like that. But at this point, I just even with it being an open relationship and everything like that, it's kind of toxic. And I think a lot of people are kind of just like, who don't care, you know, of course. But you have the people who do care, who will idolize Jada and be like, Jada's such a hero. She's such a brave woman for coming out and doing all this other stuff. And Will should have treated her better and everything like that. But we already know that uh, Tupac has always been in the picture even after death. So it's kind of just like, I think their marriage was just kind of built on false pretenses. And Will, for the most part, when he was younger, I mean, he still defends her to a certain extent. Like, he doesn't really talk bad about her. So
So this is a very deep, very complex topic to go into. So just kind of my analysis of the whole situation. Excuse me. So, Will has always been successful. Fresh Prince. We all know about Fresh Prince. Like, he's been doing that since he's young. He's probably been a millionaire since he
can remember,
really
yeah.
out of high school. Yeah. So I think he was with his first wife. He had his first kid, his first son with that wife. Then I think that's when he met Jada, pretty much. But long story short, not to get into the details of Will and Jada, because that's their business ultimately.
Yeah.
But I think this is a very, and I'll get to the point. But Will, he's rich, he's good looking, he has all the fame and power, whatever he saw in Jada, he saw in her, he got to her. But Will has always had the image of the clean cut, rated G, quote unquote square. Well, Jada, I believe she grew up in the East Coast, so she was kind of like, I wouldn't necessarily say the hood chick, but she grew up from the rough parts of town, and
She was a little rough around the edges, but she
Yeah.
stood her ground. She's confident. She's always
Yeah.
been like like a figure, geez,
strong female.
yeah, strong female figure in the community. I mean, even when she was younger, like set it off and stuff like that. Like,
Yeah.
she was definitely somebody who was highly sought after.
Yeah. So I think that's why she kind of meshed with Tupac, and Will wanted her so he did get her. But I think ultimately both of them settled, right? It was one of those things where I think Will settled with her, or Will didn't settle with her necessarily. He got his woman, but he was only allured by the image of her.
Yeah.
And maybe once he got to know her, then he kind of like
fell in love with her more, and
he
just
kind of fell in love with her more and kept on chasing that.
Yeah.
Maybe deep down inside he knew that he could never fill the spot that Tupac had. And then going back to Jada, I think she just settled because Will, he's good looking, he's really
always
famous,
sought after, and things like
always
that.
sought after, and he had money. And at that point, Tupac died. Because honestly, I think if Tupac was alive, like there's no way,
facts.
there is absolutely no way she would be with Will. And just to heighten on that example, do you think nowadays, when you juxtapose that situation with back then, where our parents' age, or even before that, where like you had a man, and societal pressure put him into like, oh, you have to get married, you have to have kids, find a woman, and vice versa with the woman. Do you think because we didn't have as much technology, we didn't have as much options, everyone was kind of like on their own level type deal? Do you think people were more comfortable with settling then, as opposed to now, where we have options, globalization, travel, more social mobility? Do you think that because we have more choices, we have more things outside of, I guess, relationships and sex and whatever, we have, video games, you have hobbies, you have all these different things and distractions? Do you think that is the reason why, or could be a big factor why marriages has failed, why we don't settle as much as our parents and grandparents have?
So yeah, technology and social media has been a big part of like why people are always seeking other ventures. Essentially, like it goes back to the saying, it's like the grass isn't always greener on the other side. While you may get one thing that you want, you may lose another thing. And I think that social media has made it to the point where a lot of people are seeing all the things that are going on in the world, especially after the whole COVID situation. A lot of people were just like, am I settling? They question their beliefs, they question their relationships. And then now it seems like a lot more people are just kind of like, I'm just going to see what happens, this, and that. But with that being said, you're taking a huge risk. Like, if you have something and it works, then if it's not broke, don't fix it. But I think a lot of people are just like, well, if you don't want me, if you don't want to do this and that, then somebody else will. And somebody else may do that for the time being, but what happens when they decide like, oh, well, I'm good now, and then they move on. So speaking to a couple of my homeboys and everything like that seems to be the situation that's going on now. A lot of these dudes have been in like relationships and things like that. And now all of a sudden things are starting to change. Maybe people are, the women that they were dealing with are just like, oh, I don't want to settle. But the thing about men essentially is like, okay, if you don't want to settle, then I'm just going to keep doing me and I'm going to do better. I think that men logically could just genetically, like a lot more men think logically than women at times. And I mean, of course, there's just the variations and the differences between how you were raised and things like that. But like in the genetic base thinking, like men don't necessarily think with emotions when they make decisions half the time, because anything that you do as a man it has to be logical. It has to be precise. If you go into business, you can't be like, oh man, these people didn't really like what I was doing, so I can't do it. No, you have to push past that and keep going and do it regardless of what anybody's going to say or how they feel about it. In business, there's no feelings. Like we talked about CEOs and how CEOs sacrifice a lot of their luxuries and enjoyment in life to get to a point in their lives where they can be successful, where they don't have to worry about these things. And then once they get to that level, they start looking for love, they start looking for relationships and things like that. And we talked about it before, where as a man, it's a little bit easier to do that because as men get older, they get more money, they get more stability in their life, they get more secure in themselves, confidence, self-confidence, and things like that. And that's attractive to a lot of women. As far as women go, like the older they get, I mean, their biological clocks are the biggest thing that's working against them. I mean, truthfully, like the older they get, the harder it is for them to have kids sometimes. If they don't hit between those peak times, then they just kind of like lose one aspect of something that would be attractive to a man. The looks start to fade. I mean, even an ugly dude with money can get a chick who looks like whatever, like a supermodel. So I don't think that's the same way where like an ugly chick with money could get like a dude who's like everything that she ever wanted, because it's just like dudes are like kind of shallow at times. Not necessarily like shallow, but like picky.
It's
like,
just how we're programmed. Like we look for looks first. That's like the first thing we look at. But ultimately, the character of the woman is also very important as well. Very, very important.
I mean, but that's the thing too, is like, I mean, somebody who has a good personality, who has good character, can almost get whatever they want, especially if they put the time in and things like that. So it's not like we're saying like, oh, if you're ugly and you're a woman and you make money, you're not going to be able to get the guy that you want. But that's the thing too, is like, I just feel like the society that we're in, more men are going to have success being ugly and old and with money, getting younger women, getting women that they actually want, or who satisfy the needs that they want at the time and place that they're at in their life. So
for sure, this is important where men and women, especially nowadays, because there's so much variables, there's so much things going on as opposed to 20, 30, 50 years ago. you kind of have to get yourselves together before you get into a relationship. I think social media, just media in general, like watching movies, all this stuff, we have like a misconstrued vision of what marriage is. Because honestly, like marriage is a business, man. Like you got to go into marriage with the mindset of like, hey, I'm gonna start this thing with a partner, whether that is, can do we mesh with this person? Can we live with each other? Can we tolerate each other's, you know, bad quirks? Like, do we have the same goals? Do we have the same mindset? Do we have the same philosophy in life? Do we agree to discipline the kids the same? Like, what level of financial security you want to have? And I think nowadays everyone is kind of going with the flow of things instead of planning this out. And especially with men, I mean, there's a whole aspect with women, with the whole, what they call it, hot girl summer
Oh yeah,
mentality where they're throwing the box around. But also dudes need to be accountable too, because you
yeah,
like,
city boys.
yeah, because it's like I think us as guys, society too kind of encourages it or doesn't encourage, I guess, discipline. You know what I mean?
But it's like the hunter gatherer aspect. Like this is
It's
something that's kind of like what's built into man. Is like in the past, like if we're talking about like primitive times, and this is something that's in our DNA. Is like, I mean, think about animals too. Like men, male, uh, males are hunter gatherers. Like they're designed to provide, make sure that your family is good, be the breadwinner at times. But the thing about this in modern relationships now is a lot of the cost of living is going up a lot, to be honest. And the thing is like maybe back in the 40s and 30s and 50s and stuff like that, like a man could support a single household with maybe like 2, 3 kids, and off of his job alone, he could support that. Like what you could go down to the grocery store and get a thing of milk for like 50 cents. But now, like what milk is like $3, $4. Like
yeah,
the times are not necessarily getting rough, but there's a lot more pressure to be better, and not, you can't just have a regular job. Like a lot of our older grandparents, aunts, uncles, and stuff like that, they worked the same job at like a grocery store or something for like
man.
years, and it never affected their financial situations. But you got to think they weren't traveling around the world like that. They weren't doing like all these crazy new
Internet, yeah.
yeah, like there's a lot of stuff that's just become like, I mean, convenience has become a costly, like anything that's worth convenience costs money. So it's like before, convenience wasn't something that costed money. It was just like everything has a price tag on it. And a man can provide all this stuff for a woman and his family, but it's a lot harder nowadays when you just have no job experience, no trade, no anything. And that was another thing that we talked about too, where men used to actually go into trades like plumbers, AC, like electricians, things like that. And the newer generation is looking at these jobs like, oh, that's a square job. There's a 17-year-old on YouTube making $1 million every day, or like whatever they want to make up. And it's just like, that's like a small percentage of successful people. We talked about the 10% of men who are actually highly successful, and just like making millions of dollars, money's just coming in, this and that. But they're also, you have to look at the work that they put in.
Yeah.
Like what did they sacrifice to be able to make $30,000 a year? They sacrificed definitely having a family, having a girlfriend maybe at times, friends, family, all types of stuff. Yeah, like, and it's like mental health, like, yeah. So it's like for you to want what that man has at that point, just because you think you deserve it. And that's the big thing too, is like people think that they deserve a lot more than what they are asking for. It's like nobody deserves anything in this world.
Nothing. Yeah.
If you're not working for something, then that's just what it is. And I just think that with all the things going around with equality and things like that, like we need to really look at like, what does equality mean? Like,
exactly, what does equality mean?
Equality means that if we're having men and women being equals, then that means like men shouldn't have to take care of women. Like If men are going out on a date with women, I mean, why isn't a woman paying for it?
You
We're
know,
equals. Like,
women are not going for that, man.
I mean,
So
we
it's
get
just,
that.
yeah. But it's just multifold with this whole situation, because it all goes back to what I harp on for young men especially. Like no one cares about us, man. In society, when you look at society in general,
Mm.
where like something could happen to a woman or a child or whatever, and quite rightfully so, like something happened to them, society's gonna come to the rescue. But when it comes down to a man, especially for a certain pigmentation, like no one cares about you, man.
Yeah.
So it is imperative. It's not fun. It sucks because you see all your friends partying and all that stuff. But like
Uh,
you gotta buckle down and like get something done, like stay on your purpose, like whether that's a trade or your degree or whatever. Because in your 20s, your 30s will love you for it. Your 30 version of you, when you're 30 and 40, will love it. But if you work hard in your teens and in your 20s, making your money, making your kingdom, then by the time you get to your 30s and 40s, you'll be set for life. You'll
oh
be
yeah.
on top. You have all the women. You'll be able to take all the trips. You'll be able to enjoy the finer things in life. Because ultimately, I think what everyone wants in society and civilization in general is time. Time is the most precious resource, because you go out every day and you work in a job that you don't like with people you don't like. You're tired, you're eating bad food, you're working in hazardous conditions, you're coming home, and like if you have kids, you have to deal with that, and it's a repeat, rinse and recycle. Rich people don't have to do that.
No.
Rich people can be like, oh, I want to go to Paris real quick and get this, go at this 5-star restaurant, jump on my jet, and let me chill in the Maldives next week. They have the money, which adds to the quality of life. It adds to a richer life. I mean, some would say that I guess humans shouldn't live like this, but should we or should we not? Is not the question we're doing right now. Maybe we could talk about
Yeah,
that
we'll
later,
talk about
but
it
it's
later.
just more so like we're in a civilization that we, for lack of a better term, we gotta play the game, and we only have one life, so we just gotta do it right. And we're just trying to, keep people on game. Like, you gotta work hard now so you can play hard later. Long
And
story short.
the thing is like you think about most, not most, but let's say some celebrities, like they literally do everything that they want to do until they're like what 30, 32, a little bit older than that sometimes.
Hmm.
And then that's when they start having kids. That's when they start building a family.
Yeah.
Like you see like actors who are like 46, 47, like, oh, I'm having kids now. Like, and it's just like, bro, like I don't want to have no kids at 46, 47, but they sacrificed a lot more in the earlier years. And that's the thing too that people have to realize is the younger that you have kids, the longer that it's going to take you to reach your goals at sometimes.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Oh yeah.
because that can be a major setback. And granted, you can work your way out of it. I mean, I've seen plenty of my friends work around everything like that. And I mean, even myself. But I've seen a lot of people struggle with having kids at a young age and just not being able to take care of their responsibilities and always dependent on people to kind of help them out. And truthfully, they can't even focus on their goals because they have so much invested in their children that that becomes the priority. And the thing
Yeah.
is, your kids are around, of course, longer than when you're 18, when they're 18 and stuff like that. But generally, like until they turn 18 and they start making their own decisions and like doing things, like you're responsible for them. And even past that, you're responsible for them. But at that point, they're have the understanding that like, okay, I got to figure out my life because you can't hold their hand forever. Now, granted, like with my daughters, like they'll probably stay in the house or just I mean, I'll support them forever, but like from those ages of like 18 to 25 is like a huge part of their lives that I need to be a part of. So that's why I'm working towards having
Yeah,
the most
exactly.
amount of free time during those years so that I don't have to essentially worry about them after that age, and I can just kind of have this peace of mind that I've taught them everything that they need to know, and that they can get to a level far greater than my level at a younger age and do everything half, because we're trying to break the generational curses that
Versus, yeah.
our grandparents, our great grandparents went through, and that's what they wanted. They sacrificed for us so that we would be able to do better for our generations and generations to come. And that's what you have to look at. And we can get into another talk about generational curses and just like generational things. But for sure, there's like a big difference in why people who are successful continue to be successful. And it starts with not only yourself, but like what you do for your kids, what your grandparents did for you, and just so on and so on and so on. So
We are definitely getting into that. But yeah, man, from what I can surmise, from what Will is saying, for men and for women, it all goes back to discipline, man. I think social media, we keep on harping on this recurrent theme, instant gratification. Sex is great, but it's kind of like one of those things where you got to understand in the back of your mind, with sex, you might have a child, and that's a big life event, a life-changing event. And it's just like, for men, man, and it's even hard for men, because as a dude, it's harder to gain sexual access compared to a woman. So it's like once it's kind of like you got to get in where you fit in, almost. It's really tough.
It really be like that sometimes.
But it's kind of that pressure that's put on us, hormones flowing, social influences. But you got to keep your eye on the prize, man, because trust me, it's like, if I knew what I knew now, I'd been way better shape. And I've seen people like, oh, those are the squares, like they're always in their book. You never see them like socializing with females now. And they're doctors, they're doing big things, and it's like, that's all it is. It's like the fruits of your labor that you do when you're young, when you have the energy, when you have no responsibility, you lay the foundation for the rest of your life. And that magnitude of knowledge is lost upon a lot of us, because we're caught up in the whole like newest trends, like the high school or the college gossip, or chasing women, or vice versa, if women are like looking for guys and all that stuff. Nah, that's not the wave. Like, granted, I'm not saying that you can't have fun, you can't go to a party.
You
can't
will
hang out
have
with your
fun
friends.
when you're doing
You
all
will
this
have
stuff.
fun.
Yeah.
You will even have fun, like, prepping yourself, right? Like, you doing whatever. But it's just like,
it can't be consistently. Like, you're not going to make $1 million going out every single weekend. Like, that's point blank period. Like, unless like you're going out networking and you're also providing a service while you're going out, and that's part of your hustle, then yeah, that's fine. Like, but you have to also be responsible with even doing that. Like, that doesn't mean you can be blackout drunk just because you made a deal and now you can't remember it, or whatever you're doing when you go out. But that's the thing too, is like, you might have plans like, okay, I got this and this lined up, and then boom, you slip up and now your girl's pregnant, or some random girl that you met is pregnant, and now you don't know this person. So now you're trying to build something with this person while also trying to maintain your lifestyle. And it's like, that might just not mesh. But the stress that will come with that situation is something that can deter you for like 2, 3, maybe even 4 years. And we've seen it all before, where it's just like, oh, I can't deal with my baby's mama, this and that, and this and that. Like, everybody already had heard the stories before. And that mental energy that's not being focused on your goals and ambitions takes so much away from you. Like, point blank period. There's no easy way to say that.
It does. And just to tie this in with the whole original Will and Jada thing, it's really important to find someone who supports you and who truly loves you, or have the same kind of goals, because it always goes back to like, finding the right partner. Because it's like, okay, you meet someone and she's beautiful, or if you're a female, he's beautiful, or wherever sexual orientation you are, and then you get with this person and you're so blinded by looks. You don't look at like, oh, is this person, do we share the same ideas, the same mindset, the same philosophies, and all this stuff? Because if you're getting married to this person, that's like, a lifelong commitment. And as I said before, I think people are just willy nilly with it. They see, Real Housewives of Atlanta or something, and they think that's how life should be like. And it's all messed up. It's like marriage is like a business, man. It's real life stuff. And I think a lot of social ills that we have in the West is because we have a lot of broken homes, and it's serious business to get married and to have kids within that. That's my personal
Yeah.
opinion, so that you can have like functioning, the highest success of having functional adults from your kids. But yeah, man, it's an issue. And the Will and Jada incident, notwithstanding whatever internal issues they may have, is definitely, I think, example of, dysfunctional a relationship where maybe they weren't meshing, and just expectations gone wrong, and
Yeah.
settling for someone that may not be compatible with you.
And that's the thing is like, even when you say like marriage is a business, like if you're passionate about something, like it can be fun. Like if you're passionate about the business that you're in, it can be fun. It can work out, things like that. Like it's not just like when you think about business, it's like, oh, it's supposed to be this way, this way, this way.
No, it's
Like
not.
it's never. And the thing is like it's work. Like it's literally work. Like you
It's
have
work.
to, like as you mature together, you have to realign things so that you can continue to grow together, or else one person will get left behind, and then that's where all the problems come, and this and that. So I won't dig too deep into it, but I think with my closing remarks, I will say that the Will and Jada situation is kind of like, we can take a lesson from it to kind of just see like what marriage can be when I don't even know what to say, because like borderline, like Will should just leave her at this point. Like I just don't think that it's even worth it anymore, because if every week she's going to be coming up with something new, it's just like, what's the point? Like I get it. Like, and the thing is, like, I don't even think it's like love anymore. Like maybe he does. Maybe he truly does love her, and he's just like, he's in a phase in his life where he kind of can decide what he actually wants. And I think that it may be more so regret and how much he put into his work and his life goals earlier on in the marriage. So maybe that's why he's just like, oh, I'm not going to give up on her, because that's just like how old traditional marriages used to be. Is like you had your differences, but then like you weren't getting divorces. And I think like divorces become so easy to just deal with and do, that it's just one of those things where it's like, all right, cool, I'm done, I'll just find somebody else and just move on. And then like, I mean, but sometimes that works. Like sometimes it just works. So I don't know.
It's in my close remarks, I just feel like personally, she has something over him, because there's just no way, man. There's no way. Like, I get it. He's probably worth, was probably worth 9 figures, 8 figures. He's super filthy rich. Let's just say that.
I mean, I don't think he even has to put out movies, and he has a new movie coming out. He's worth. Keep going. He's only. Well, he's worth. I'm saying like only, but he's worth 350 million net worth.
Yes. I gotta use my math. Yes, 5 figures. And it's like, so that she's gonna get a huge chunk of change if they do divorce. But I mean, like, even if he's living out of a van, man, I feel like he needs to get out of that situation, because it's not worth it. I don't know what's going on. Maybe we don't want to know, but long story short, man, guys and girls, choose your partners right wisely. Choose them wisely. Can't speak today, but choose your partners wisely.
Make sure they didn't date Tupac before you. I don't know what that man did to her, but like he is living rent free in her space. Like, okay,
like 20 years dead. Yeah. Like it's crazy. But yeah, make sure you actually 100% know that you're gonna be with this person for the rest of your life. You know, make sure you got the same goals. You know, you're there for each other, you support each other. Make sure it's not one-sided. And before you get to that, like, you know, for guys, make sure you're financially, you know, every type of aspect of your life whole. And same thing for women, so that when you come together, like, you minimize as much problems you got. But it's just, I think everything is just so haphazard, and I want it now, 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 instead of learning to learn about things and to understand things. I think that's one of the big reasons why stuff like this happens. But anyways, guys, if you've gotten so far in the video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, because that goes a long way in keeping this channel alive. And with that being said,
And
I'm your boy Pop.
I'm your boy Willie, man. I got a little small thing after, but essentially, what we'll start doing is going into like the aspects of like building healthy relationships and healthy financial stability and things like that. We have a couple projects that we're working on now, so bear with us. It's a lot just trying to line up everything, especially with different time zones and everything like that. But stay tuned, and we will definitely not be talking about just celebrities and their social issues, because our talks trigger from celebrity issues, but there's more lessons to be learned.
There's more lessons to be learned.
Yeah, especially because we're looking at more successful people than us, so it's kind of like, okay, if they're dealing with these problems, what does that mean? Yeah, exactly. Like, what can we learn from this situation? So that's more so what we're trying to do here, and not necessarily harp on just celebrity problems and everything like that.
Yeah.
But with the next couple talks, we should find a healthy balance and some more informational aspects as far as like building up people. So stay tuned for that. And that was just my last little snippet. But till next time, guys, catch y'all later.
Catch y'all later.
Peace.